Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And welcome to the Help Me, I'm Middle-Aged podcast.
Where you can find fun, exciting things about being middle-aged.
Oh, you're going to find things about us and about yourself you never thought you knew.
Hold on, come along for the ride. It's going to be fun.
Welcome to the Help Me, I'm Middle-Aged podcast. My name is Rob.
And I'm Rob too.
And today we have a great guest, Rachel Garcia. She's a physician's assistant based out of Jacksonville, Florida. And she has a lot of information in the health and wellness space. It is the new year. We've left 2020. Everyone's hoping and praying that 2021 is going to be a lot better. Welcome to January. And welcome to our guest, Rachel Garcia. Thanks for coming on, Rach.
Well, thanks so much, Rob. I'm excited to be here.
We are too. So we wanted to talk about your journey through health and nutrition. I know a lot about it. We've been friends since 2014, and it's been a great relationship. My wife is great friends with you, and we've spent some time together over the years. And I wanted to figure out and let our audience know about omega-3s, chia seeds, and your journey and how it evolved with health and nutrition, because it's a great story if you would mind sharing it.
Absolutely. I'm glad to share it. So I'm a physician assistant. Most people watching see a PA or a nurse practitioner oftentimes when they go to the physician or to the doctor's office. Nowadays, so many people are doing it virtual, but I think most people in America are familiar with PAs. And so I graduated from PA school back in 2001, and I practiced medicine from 2001 to 2020, January of 2020. And in the height of my career, when I first really got plugged into health and nutrition and the extreme importance of what we're putting into our bodies, I was seeing 60 to 70 patients a day in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. And the days that I wasn't seeing patients, I was in a clinic in the OR, actually removing cancers from people's bodies. And so, you know, I was kind of at the height of my career. I'd achieved and was doing exactly what I was hoping that I'd be doing when I went to medical school. And we got a diagnosis in our family that my nephew had been diagnosed with severe autism. And he was the same age as my son, but there were some very noticeable differences in regards to speech and communication. And it took us about 9 months of waiting to get in with a specialist. And I sat with my sister as the specialist told her, your son will likely never speak. He will likely never have more than the mind of a 3-year-old. He will probably always be in diapers. And my sister is sobbing next to me. And, you know, I had a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old at the time. And I just had a lot of questions. And so I have a master's degree in clinical medical sciences. It's one of the educations I received as going through the medical school process. And so I just really research everything. And I think a lot of people, when they get a scary diagnosis, whether it's autism or you're pre-diabetic or you are diabetic, you have type 2 diabetes, or, you know, your carotid arteries are 65% blocked, whatever the diagnosis is that's scary, a lot of people just say, okay, tell me what to do. And I think because of my background, I had a lot of questions and had not learned about autism in PA school. And I had not, I'd never really seen it before, didn't know a lot about it. So I began just diving in and doing an extensive amount of research. And through that research, it was kind of like opening Pandora's box. That was when I began to understand that what we put into our bodies, and maybe even more importantly, what we don't remove from our bodies, has a significant impact on our health and the way we function. And for mommies carrying babies, it's super important. And so that started me on the journey of learning about nutrition. And I think a lot of people out there would be like, wait a minute now, you wrote prescriptions, you did surgery, you saw patients all day long, and you didn't know a lot about nutrition. No, we weren't taught that in medical school. We were taught we had a massive amount of information on pharmacology and what prescriptions to write for a 38-year-old male who has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and has now been diagnosed with depression. You know, the board exam question, PAs have to take board exams every 6 years. And the board question would be, well, you know, what medications can we put him on for his depression that won't interact with his high blood pressure and high cholesterol medications? And after Pandora's box was opened, my mind had started to think, why aren't we asking the question of why does a 38-year-old male struggle with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and depression? What is he consuming or not consuming that is resulting in all of these issues? And that was just the beginning of my journey, Rob. And it's now been, well, gosh, that was 2008. It's now been 12 years. And the result of my studying and digging in deep actually caused me to walk away from practicing medicine in January of 2020, a career that I went to school for 8.5 years and spent over $100,000 to be able to see patients and practice medicine. And I really feel that through nutrition, I've learned a better way to help people. So now I still help people. I just do it in a very different way because I will no longer. I'm very thankful for medicine. I'm very thankful for the options it gives. I think it's just overused in our country. And I think many of us are in this state right now of being very fearful about our health and bugs that we come into contact with. And I really believe with all of my heart that if you boost your immune system through food and get rid of the toxins we've been consuming unknowingly since we were born, really, that our bodies will work. They're powerhouses. And so that's my hope today, is to be able to give you a little bit of information, give your listeners a little bit of information on that, just so that their mind is opened and they're more aware and know that they can do their own research.
Is that changing, Rachel? Is medicine changing to incorporate what you're talking about, or do you not see anything really
I would
happening?
say that it is a little bit. If you go looking for I'm going to say functional medicine physician now, as somebody who is more focused on homeopathic treatments maybe, and supplementation and food, more so than just prescription medications. If you go looking for somebody in the majority of the larger cities in our country, I think you'll find one. Or 2 or 3. If you go looking in rural areas, maybe not so. One of the things I'll often tell the people I'm working with is, a lot of people have a goal to maybe wean down on their medications. It's not, I would say it's actually unusual for a 50-year-old to not be on at least 3 or 4 prescription medications. And so a lot of people that start kind of getting educated have the goal, maybe not to get off all medication. Some people totally have that goal, but to wean down and to use less, and they don't like the side effects. And so I'll often say, now that you've been educated, go talk to your doctor and say, I've started on this nutritional regimen. I'm interested in decreasing my meds. And if they say, no, don't do that, well, then you probably should start looking elsewhere. So I know that's a strong statement to make, but yes, it's much more commonplace now, I think, Rob, because people who've been in the medical field for, I'm going to say 15 years plus, we've seen a change. And we know it's not a good change. And they're looking for answers.
I have a functional doctor that I go, and I've gotten off one medication because of her. So I completely agree with you. So it's kind of life-changing, call it. So it's encouraging for the future too, which I am very, very appreciative of. So absolutely.
It's absolutely encouraging.
Rachel, Rachel does a lot of public speaking, and as we go through this podcast, she'll let you know where you can find her online and maybe listen to some of her talks. But you said something one time that just really stuck with me. And you said, if you get things in your body knows what to do with them. And it's one of those lines that you just said, and it just doesn't leave my mind. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that are always in the back there. And I think that is so true, because we put like a lot of bad things in our body, and our actually probably body doesn't know what to do with them, because as we've evolved, these things weren't always part of the diet we've developed with over evolution. But explain a little bit about, I know you've done a tremendous amount of research on these omega-3s and chia seeds, and just if you can just touch on that a little bit.
Sure. Well, I started doing all of this research on health and nutrition, and I did what everybody does, I think, who starts to learn about the power of nutrition, and you just start researching and Googling. And back in 2008, I would say right now, kind of everybody has access to medical studies, but guys, there were times in the last 20 years where if you were not a medical prescriber and didn't have a license and weren't subscribed to a specific medical database, you couldn't get access to the studies. And so now I really would say everybody can get access to medical studies that have been published. And so I began to do a tremendous amount of research and looking into, okay, like I'm going to talk about autism, specifically autism. Like I found so many studies on autism and the importance of nutrition. A lot of children on the spectrum tend to be very unilevel in their tastes. They will only oftentimes, not all the time, but consume one thing, or will only eat one food, well, only hot dogs and nothing else. And so as I began to dive into this world a little bit more, I began to understand that there's some significant potential nutritional deficiencies. And so I began doing research on, well, what kind of nutrition do we need? If you think about, the food groups, and if you dive into the research on the food groups and all the times that those were published over the decades and what were recommended food groups for Americans, that could be a 3-hour conversation all by itself, but it does get you thinking. Omega-3s were not something that were ever really talked about until, I'm going to say, the last 15 years. A lot of people may remember their grandmothers giving them like cod liver oil, fish oil on a spoon. That's omega-3s. And when I began to do the research on the autism, it was something that kind of kept coming up in my studies. And then you go research, well, what kind of omega-3s are out there? How do you find them? And fish oil was really the only option. Flax was another option for omega-3s. And flax, I had a lot of reservations about for a number of reasons. It doesn't have the GRAS status in the United States. That's just generally regarded as safe status for supplementation. A lot of the flax we have in the US is genetically modified. It was mentioned 89 times in the Bible, never once as a food. It was always used as a linen or a textile. So if we're supposed to eat it, how come they didn't eat it? So there weren't a lot of options for omega-3s. And I was researching. And I will tell you, the average person, I think, who goes researching or looking for better options, they'll walk into the health food store because people don't have a lot of time, right? So they go to the health food store and they find the 18-year-old behind the counter. Oh, I'm looking for a good omega-3, or I'm looking for something for my son's allergies. And this guy makes minimum wage. That's what the average person is doing. Or they're Google searching, right? And the sales companies have gotten smart. They're hiring SEO, search engine optimization companies to market and get their vitamin to the top level. And so there's all kinds of fog and mirrors you have to go through to get to the right answers. And so I stumbled on to a really good source of omega-3s. Rob knows the story well, in 2008, when someone that I really respected and trusted called me and said, I need you to take a look at this. And it was a source of omega-3s in the form of chia seeds that were grown all over the world, 9 different farms, very close to the equator. And so what happened in 2008 was I found out about this food. I started researching it. I found out that there's really no better source of omega-3s on the planet than chia seeds. When you think about, where they get the fish oil from and how they get it versus a plant source. And I can really dive into for quite some time on the importance of plant-based nutrition versus other sorts of nutrition and what the fish are swimming in. But we started consuming it in our family and saw some extremely tremendous results with my nephew, with my husband, with myself, in regards to depression and sleep issues and bowel issues, and my nephew's speaking issues. And I went a little further and did a little tiny grassroots study with a pediatrician in Gainesville, Florida, and saw some tremendous results in the children who were consuming this chia seed, this blend of chia seeds. Because a lot of people over the years, it's all happened in 2008, 2009, and all of a sudden chia seeds started to become very popular. And you can find it grown in Florida. You can find it grown all over the United States. But what agricultural studies have shown is that chia seeds grown near the equator at certain elevations are the only seeds that have high amounts of omega-3s. And what are omega-3s? Like, you hear Rob throwing it out, you hear me throwing it out. A lot of people don't know what they are, but by definition, omega-3s are essential fatty acids. Essential fatty acids. That means we have to have them to function properly, yet we don't make them. That's not me speaking. That's just, you can go out and find that. And so we need them daily, but very few Americans are consuming omega-3s on a daily basis. And where can you get them? Well, we already talked about flax, fish oil, and then chia seeds. And so Rob and I have been using this chia seeds that are grown all around the world at these high elevations that have high amounts of phytonutrients, antioxidants, omega-3s, fiber. All of these things are extremely important for us to consume on a regular basis. I could do a whole hour-long education session on fiber and what fiber has been shown to do for decades, right? In clinical studies in regards to cleansing out the intestinal tract, in regards to regulating blood sugar levels and helping with cholesterol. That's all been documented in medical clinical studies for decades. And so to have a natural plant source that has fibers, phytonutrients, that's plant cancer fighters, as well as high amounts of omega-3s, it's pretty powerful. And I didn't realize how powerful it was until I started consuming it consistently, and my entire household did, and we started recommending it. And that was just really the first puzzle piece, I think, to a massive puzzle of understanding every organ system we have requires specific plant-based nutrition, and very few people are getting that in their body. Just go out on a kid's field trip. Not that they're having them anymore, but go out with a group of kids and see what they're eating for lunch. And if you'd done that in 2019, you would have seen some Lunchables and Doritos and Oreos and gummy bears and maybe a soda or a juice box. Very little nutrition, if any. Why are we surprised that the cancer rates are expected to overtake the heart disease? Heart disease rate is the #1 killer of Americans in the next year or two. So omega-3s are a huge piece to the puzzle, and it just kind of opens the door, I think, for understanding of what's possible when you start to put the right nutrition in.
What about omega-6s? You hear about those too.
Oh yeah, you need to have omega-3s and omega-6s in the perfect combination, which is one of the things that makes the chia seed so powerful, is it has the perfect ratio of omega-3s and omega-6s. A lot of, you don't want to get too many omega-6s in your body. You want to have more omega-3s than omega-6s, which is why the chia seed is a natural source of both in the perfect combination. And to find something like that so natural, like that comes from the ground. The oldest book of wisdom says everything we need comes from the ground for our bodies to work the way they're supposed to work. And so when you find this, it's been called the miracle seed. Multiple books have been written on it. There's a book called Born to Run, written by the editor of Men's Health magazine at one point, all about, it's a runner's book, but they talk about the Tarahumara Indians and how they ran for 48 to 72 hours, which I don't know how many of you are runners, but I'm not interested in running 48 to 72 hours, but all that these guys run on is chia seed and water, because it gives that long stamina as well. So it's such a natural source of food, but also the essential nutrition that we need. And so that's omega-3s, omega-6s, perfect combo.
Can you take too many? Or can you have too much in your system? And
your body, so that's a great question. If you put too much fiber in, your body will tell you, but you can really kind of have too much of anything, right? We all know what happens if we eat too much pineapple. Your tongue's it doesn't feel good, right? You can have too much of anything really, and our bodies will tell us. And so what I always tell people when they're starting to consume omega-3s, and the brand that we use has now I'm blanking, 2 grams. No, it's not 2 grams. I might have to go grab a bag so that I can show you how many grams it is, but it's two tablespoons has 3,000 milligrams of omega-3s. That's what it is. I'm getting my 2s and my 3s combined. And so that 2 tablespoons looks like pepper, tastes like nothing. You can put it in anything. And that is a comprehensive source of food, and it's so easy to add versus so many other options out there that we consume that people they don't even feel results, right? How many people listening consume vitamins or omega-3s or whatever it is, and you can't tell when you take it, and you can't tell when you don't? Why even consume something if you can't tell? So my husband and I have been involved with this now for 12 years. We've traveled internationally multiple times over the last 10 years. We literally pack a suitcase with our plant-based supplements, because we don't know what's going to be there when we get there. We don't know, you know, what toxins we're going to be consuming. We've got to get the junk out. Part of the chia seeds is to cleanse out the intestinal tract like a bottle scrub brush. It goes and gets in there. And some people are like, oh, I do a cleanse once a month to cleanse out, you know, everything. Well, most, you know, we have these microscopic villi in our intestinal tract, and a lot of cleanses out there on the market just rip out all the villi. Your body can't absorb nutrition anymore. But to have something that kind of goes in there and cleanses out the intestinal tract so that it can begin working the way it's supposed to work, that's pretty powerful as well.
Rachel, so as you're going through this journey the last 10, 15 years, so when you are in a place where you see, how many times do we go somewhere and like, or even ourselves, right, where we're not perfect all the time, right? But like, I noticed when I started on my health journey in 2014, I would just stop and like, I'd be in a situation where I'd be like, oh my God, everyone is just eating complete junk, right? It's like our entire society. It's not an individual, right? But wherever you go, and you know, you got company coming over and like, yeah, but sometimes you take a step back and you're like, we're really, as a society, we're doing this to ourselves, right? Because what I love about you is that you're basically an educator, right? You're just sharing information. Do with it what you want, right? But has it been frustrating? Has it been a long journey? Are there days where you're like, oh, you know, like what is that sharing like with people?
I think that everyone knows what I'm saying is true. They know it. But we're so busy, right, in life. We're just so busy. People wake up to alarm clocks. They're going to work. They're working from home. Now they've got their kids at home doing school. We're just busy. Food, laundry, everything that we have, that you may know that you need to do something, right? We all know we need to exercise every day. All of us know it, but whether or not we actually stop and do it,
Sure.
You know, that's a whole different story. And so we know we need to do better with what we eat, but to stop and do it, to buy something different that your kids are going to fight you on, that's a lot of work. And one of the things you've heard me say multiple times, Rob, is as a parent, I realized when my boys were young that it's not the teacher's jobs or the doctor's jobs to get the right food in their bodies. It's my job. And I only have a limited 15 to 18 years before they start saying, forget you, mom, I'm going to eat whatever I want. And so I would say everyone knows what I'm saying is true, but it's the time in their life that they hear the message. That's the important thing. And I have no control over their timing. You have no control over their timing. When you guys are watching this podcast, I don't know what time it is in your life, but all I can do is get the message out and get the message out and get the message out. And I find enough people that it falls on them at the right time in their life that they're like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear this. Oh my gosh, I've been looking for an answer. Yes, this is everything I need to know. But oftentimes we're so barraged and bombarded with salespeople, right? And this is my case as well. And Rob, I know for you as well, you heard about this from a trusted friend. I heard about this from my brother. When you see 70 patients a day, everybody's trying to sell you something or tell you about something. And you walk into Whole Foods and they're throwing flyers at you for the calcium and the vitamins, like, enough is enough. So I think it has to really come from somebody that you believe, like, and trust to make you slow down and take a look. And if it's the right time in your life, who knows? Maybe your sister was just diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Maybe your brother just had a stroke and you're like, oh my gosh. Maybe your child's struggling in school and you've tried everything and nothing is working, and it's that time in your life. And so I believe, I have faith, Rob, that the right people will find this at the right time. And all I can do is just keep getting the message out. And we get thousands of testimonies. I mean, every day, tremendous testimonies come in. People saying, thank you so much for the information you're putting out there. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. It's changed my life. And that's really what drives me. And I just know that the others, when the time is right, as long as we keep sharing the message, they'll come back in and they'll come back and take a look when the time is right. So have there been moments of discouragement? Yes, but I always fall back on, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned one of the references that I always go back to is the China study. Looks like Rob knows about it already, but it's the largest human population study ever done. And really they went to look to see why do some people live into their 90s and hundreds and have no health issues at all? You guys have heard of the blue zones, right? Like these people who live well and they have no issues. And then you can go watch the webcams over the last 20 years at Disney World and see all the wheelchairs that are starting to appear. You know, people in their
It's crazy.
60s in their wheelchairs. Why is that? What's the difference? And so they went out to do the largest human population study ever done to find out why. And it came down to, they literally have it on the back of the book, what it came down to: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so everyone knows that. They just think it's too hard. I remember my dad had a heart attack at the age of 49, quintuple bypass. And he really decided he was going to turn his life around, and he read the Atkins diet. And I was really into nutrition as I went into 18 and 19 and 20 years old. And I read it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really hard. Like, is my dad going to do this? This is really hard. It was basically going all vegan. And here's the thing. What I love about what I do is I just kind of open the door a little bit to allow people to understand it's not that we're asking you or telling you, you have to give up all your sugar, you have to give up all your meat and all your dairy. We're just saying, be aware. And if you can put more plants in than you do the other things, you will begin to see a palpable, notice a difference that will make you want to do a little better and a little better and a little better. Most people think it's too hard. It's not too hard. I promise you it's not too hard. My boys get more nutrition in 30 seconds in the morning before they leave for school than their whole class gets in a week, because of what we found and how easy we've made it. And so it's Rob, no. I used to get discouraged. Now there's tens of thousands of people that we've helped throw prescriptions in the trash. I don't know if that's going to happen for the listeners or not, but I'm so encouraged by what we have. And I know people are looking for this.
Have you seen this one?
Oh, I have not seen that one.
Yeah, this is a great one. This is by Greger,
Okay.
Michael Greger, How Not to Die. It was after the Campbell book that I somehow got onto this one. And this is an excellent one. If you want to like sort of approach all that you're talking about, because everything you're talking about, I read the Campbell study and it was great. And then I was looking for other things and this popped up. And there are so many easy ways to incorporate what you're talking about by following this. And again, I try not to get too influenced by too many authors, Campbell, Greger, you know, a few other ones like Pollan, or what's his name? Michael Pollan, I think, Forks Over Knives. So yeah, everything you're talking about. My son had, has Asperger's. So we've been giving him omega-3s since he was young. And if you met him, you would be like, I don't see it. So, you know, it's been a wonderful experience to see the evolving of that. And I think a lot of it is diet. I mean, my wife did a fantastic job in everything to make sure that he had the right stuff going into him. So
that's great. And sometimes it just needs some hope, right? Mm-hmm. Because I remember the pediatrician saying to my sister, don't look into nutritional supplementation. None of it will work. It's just false hope. Well, my nephew is now a sophomore in a public high school, and he's always been in public school. So really, I just try to deliver hope. Another hope deliverer. I don't know if you guys have read this one, Chris Beat Cancer by Chris Wark. This is a huge hope giver for those who are struggling with cancer. And there are answers out there. And so I just try to deliver the message the best that I can, and hopefully give some people some hope so they're not running around in fear, terrified of, we're all coming in contact with bugs and viruses. And I believe all of us have a little bit of cancer in our body. The question is, are you feeding your immune system or are you starving it? And so my goal is to help people feed their immune system so they don't have to be fearful.
Right.
You know what I really find interesting about you, Rachel, is that you have this health, body, and mind. So like you always say, like, you're not watching Dancing with the Stars. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but like you'll always be talking about a new book. You'll be trying to feed your body and your mind and build this little cocoon around that. And I always find that extremely interesting. Like it's inspirational that you're able to do that for all these years.
Well, I notice when I do, and I notice when I don't. And if you don't have to look very hard to hear the negativity in the world, you know, and from people, and even if you guys are on social media and you go on Facebook, it's very, very, very rare to be on Facebook for 5-10 minutes, get off and feel good about yourself, right? It's such a competitive driven, you're competing and comparing, I should say. And so I've just learned the things that make me feel better. And I know I can't go negative or sour very often. So I'm always looking for books and things to read. And I will often reread books because they're so powerful. I think a lot of books out there are like textbooks, and you just need to keep reading them to fill your spirit with them, so that that is who you are. And it's what you read, what you think, what you focus on is what you will speak, and it's how you will act. And hopefully there's a number of people walking around with those lights that you're attracted to, and it'll give you hope to change your own life. I believe anybody can change their life at any moment.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, Rob.
Well, I got a quick question. As we're starting off the new year, are there any simple ways to incorporate some of the things that you were talking about, where a person can, like put chia seeds in their whatever that they're, and just as a backup on chia seeds, don't they have to be cut, or else they just pass right through the body?
You are very well educated on this. Yes, they do. So you will get the fiber benefits, the insoluble fiber benefits. There's two kinds of fiber, insoluble and soluble fiber. The insoluble fiber is what goes through and does the scrubbing work, but the soluble fiber has a huge impact on things like cholesterol and blood sugar. And so if you want to get the full benefits, and there have been some great studies published on this in regards to chia and flax, how your body absorbs the contents more readily. It's more bioavailable if the seeds are open. The problem with chia seeds, guys, is if you go buy some chia seeds, say from Australia, right? You got, I've got good chia seeds. They're from the right latitude and longitude in Australia, but they've been opened already. If your seeds have been opened and there's not clumpy globules of fat in them, they sifted the fat out, because it's kind of gross to get a bag of seeds and put it in your smoothie or your yogurt, or we do it in muffins, and we do all kinds of stuff. French toast this morning, waffles yesterday. So it's kind of gross to get a big old globule of fat in there. And so what most companies do is they'll sift out the fat. So what are you getting? You're just getting the insoluble fiber. You're paying money for omega-3s, but they've sifted out the omega-3s. So then you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to buy some whole seeds and I'll chop them up myself. Well, if you do that, you've got the fat all around the side of the blender. And so, one of the seeds that I use regularly have already been opened. They have a special proprietary process where you can see that the contents are kind of, I don't want to say cake, maybe cakey a little bit. And you can tell that the omega-3s are still in there. But for me, the real thing is like you were saying, Rob, you can tell there's a change. If there's not a palpable change, a noticeable change in something, in your sleep, in your energy, in your bowel habits, in your mood. Omega-3s have been huge for depression in medical studies. For the children that are on the spectrum, I've noticed sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes less. It oftentimes depends on their age. But if you don't notice a difference, then you probably need to revisit what it is that you're consuming. I would recommend that you guys check out purelifechangers.com. It is a site that I put together to educate on nutrition and health. You'll see me talking about both of these books on there, as well as a number of other things that I recommend.
Okay. Absolutely. It's a great tool if you really want to get educated on health and nutrition. I would totally recommend the audience to go there and check it out. And if they want to get in touch with you, is there like a link there on that website?
There's a link. You can email me on there. You can also follow me on Facebook, but you can email me at Rachel, Rachel, at purelifechangers.com. That's a great way to find me. Or you can go onto Facebook and type in at rachelgarcia.net, and you will find me in the search box at rachelgarcia.net. You can follow me on there and get messages to me that way as well.
That's awesome. So, Rach, just one more thing before we get close to the end here. The value of cleansing the body. If you can just talk about that and how that affects people, and how that, because we've all been eating really bad for a long time, a lot of us, right? We're all not as good as we should be. So we have these toxins in us. And when you start to go down the health and nutrition and you want to change something in your life, like, this is very important, the cleansing. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought it up. So we have 7 eliminatory organs that we cleanse through. And, this is just some basic information that a lot of people don't know, but when you just don't know what you don't know. But once you hear it, you're like, oh, that makes sense. So if you think about the things we cleanse on a regular basis, right? We take our cars in every 5,000 miles. If we don't, they're driving you bananas, right? But why? Because the car manufacturer knows that car is not going to make it 200,000 miles if you don't take it in and change out the oil and put new oil in. Down here in Florida, we change out the air conditioning filters. If we don't, our air conditioning breaks. That's a very bad thing. So if you have a pool, you change out your pool filter. We have to change out the things that cleanse. And so in our bodies, we have 7 eliminatory organs: your lungs, your liver, your skin, your lymphatic system, kidneys, blood, and intestines. So a lot of people think when I'm talking about cleanse, they're like, oh, I poop every day, I'm fine. Well, good, but there's multiple other organs that likely have been backed up and sludged up and become toxic because of what we're consuming. Well, what am I consuming that's so bad? Well, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides in the food you're consuming, even if you're consuming organic. My mom has an organic farm in North Carolina. The farm next to hers is not organic. What do you think happens when it rains? The sludge and when the rain comes, where's the water come from the rain? So everything you're consuming is not as clean as you think it is. Plastic water bottles that you're drinking out of. I think probably everyone watching this podcast is old enough to remember putting saran wrap on a Tupperware container and sticking your food in the microwave. You're literally pouring toxins into your body. The Ziploc bags, the saran wrap. I went through a phase a couple years ago where I literally got all the plastic that I stored my food in out of my house. I didn't know 10 years ago the danger of this. Now I do. And it doesn't take a detective to really figure this out. Why are there so many children's hospitals for cancer now? When we were growing up, there were no children's hospitals for cancer. Like, what is happening here? And so we're really being poisoned. But our bodies are amazing machines. You don't have to run around fearful about that, but you just have to know, how do I cleanse? How can I get things out? And there's some amazing things you can do. 20 years ago, I should say 100 years ago, if a child was having a hard time going to the bathroom, a mom would run out into the woods and mix up a little herb and, concoction. Nowadays, what are they doing? They're running to the store and the doctor's giving them Miralax. Miralax is antifreeze in a bottle. Don't give anyone Miralax. And so there's a lot of natural options, chia seeds being one option, but we're really big on educating on the importance of cleansing the 7 channels, because once you do that, now your body can really absorb the good nutrition. There's no point in putting good nutrition in. It's like taking your car in for the oil change, Rob, and then not removing the old oil and just putting new fresh oil in. Like, nobody would ever do that. But we do that in America all the time, right? We see an ad for a great vitamin or this or the calcium. I need to put more calcium in my body. And I'll just touch and say for a moment, cow's milk calcium is not the best way to get calcium. That's acidic. You want a plant-based calcium. And so you start trying to put in good stuff, but you're unaware that you're toxic and you're backed up. What are some signs that you need to cleanse? You're not sleeping well. You have a really hard time losing weight. You're not going to the bathroom 3 times a day. What? 3 times a day? I'm supposed to go 3 times a day? It's one big tube. Every time you eat, whatever you ate last should be moving through you. It shouldn't be sitting there for 2, 3, 4 days. Well, I don't want to go to the bathroom 2 to 3 times a day. Okay, that's just a sign of American laziness. It should be, there should be no magazines in the bathroom. If everything's working the way that it should be in, out. I got to go, in, out, done. Okay, but 3 times a day, you have a hard time waking up. You're tired all the time. You feel like you need a nap. You have no energy. These are all signs that you need to cleanse. And sometimes people are like, well, I'm just going to do a cleanse and then I'm great. Now, you don't take the oil out of the car and then not put new oil in. You got to cleanse the junk out and then pour plant-based nutrition in. And if you do that, you're going to balance out your pH. You're going to help your body be in the correct pH. Our bodies are amazing. It's going to get our pH the way it's supposed to be, but you're either helping it, as I said earlier, you're either helping your immune system or you're hurting it. And by pouring plant-based nutrition in, you're helping it. And I'm not talking, again, go vegan and eat a massive salad 5 times a day. I'm just asking, when was the last time you put more plants in your body than you did meat, dairy, sugar, soda, coffee, and bread? And if you're doing great, good for you. What about your spouse? What about your kids? What about your parents? You know, and so all of that's important, and it doesn't have to be difficult, but it all starts with what Rob just said. Got to cleanse first, and then we start pouring the plant-based nutrition in.
Do you cleanse more often? I mean, even if you're doing that, would you advise like once a quarter to do a cleanse, just in case?
I'll tell you, in my family, we cleanse 7 days a month. First 7 days
okay.
every month, typically we
Like
cleanse.
every 4 days or so, or something like that? Or no?
It's 7 days. It's the first 7 days of every month we typically do. If I do it a little bit more, and sometimes I do that. It depends on what I'm consuming. But specifically doing a cleanse, and I don't stop everything else that I'm doing. I just cleanse 7 days of every month because of where I live and what I'm consuming and drinking and the water and everything. You know, you can't be perfect.
Right.
So I'm kind of constantly thinking about that, and then again pouring the plant-based nutrition in.
Makes sense. Wow.
Oh, Santa Claus is going by on the fire truck.
Well, you know, I find this amazing, and I really hope that our audience gets a lot out of it. I think I've not spoken too much about it on this podcast, but in 2014, I was about 270 something pounds, and I had a tremendous amount of health issues. And I was 44 at the time. And, you know, my dad died at 50 of a heart attack. And I just recently lost my mom to cancer. And, you know, like I don't exactly come from the greatest gene pool. And I was starting to have a lot of these health problems. And I found Rachel, and I started going down this journey of health and nutrition. And it's one of the real big bonding things between me and Rob. I mean, we've been talking about this stuff for years, sending each other videos on certain types of things. So it's really has changed my life tremendously. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, I know Rob's really big into this. Like, if we do the work now, we can maybe add some years onto our life. It's not a guarantee, but you know, we're doing everything we're supposed to in life, and we want to try and be as healthy as we can. We want to try and enjoy ourselves. We want to not be on medications. And I think this is a good path towards that. And I heard something that it might have been something you recommended, Rachel, or a path you've sent us down. And it was, what's easy now is hard later. What's hard now is easy later. So if we want to avoid those prescription drugs, if we want to avoid health problems in the future, it's all about drilling down, taking care of ourselves now. It's not a guarantee, but odds are we'll be able to avoid some of that.
Absolutely. And for me, I can always go back to the exercise analogy. You know, we all know that we should exercise every single day. Do we do it? Most people don't, right? But if you can start with a good nutritional regimen, I'm not talking about changing everything you eat. Okay. I'm talking about just starting with, what did I say my boys do? 30 seconds in the morning before they go to school. Start with a good nutritional regimen. Stick with it. You know, a lot of times people will make a change and they're like, you know, 6 weeks later, like, I don't see a change. I'm not happy with this. Well, my nephew didn't go from being nonverbal to speaking until 3 months after being on this regimen. And so we've destroyed our bodies for decades. Give it some time, people. Like, give it some time. You go to the gym 6 days a week for a month. I can tell you for sure, the first week, you're not happy. You're sore, you're miserable, you're tired, you don't want to go. But what happens after you've been doing it for 60 days, 90 days? And so the same thing with the nutritional regimen, except you're not having to put in the physical exertion, but what the results are, you oftentimes, now you're sleeping better. This is what happened with me. Sleeping better. I have more energy. I actually want to go on a run and go work out because I'm starting to see weight dropping off. And so it just goes hand in hand with everything that you're talking about, Rob, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, like how you think and what you put into your body is going to have an impact on everything. And so you have the opportunity in January, in the new year, 2021, new year for everybody, right? To make some small changes and just stick to them. Just decide while you're watching this today, I'm going to make some small changes and I'm going to stick to them. And then once you change yourself, then you can begin to change the people around you. It started with me. It then impacted my husband, who struggled with severe depression that I did not know what to do with it. And his whole family said, oh, we highly recommend that you put him on antidepressants. I know what happens with those. You start with a small dose, then it's a larger dose, then it's three different pills because you're struggling with anxiety and sleep as well. And so here we are 12 years later, no struggles with depression at all. And I can truly say it's all about the nutritional regimen, which then gave him the energy to go do the physical regimen. The exercise is huge for anybody and what it does for the mind. And so all of those things are important. And I'm excited to hear the testimonies from the people who've watched this and the changes that they're going to make in their life. And I appreciate you guys allowing me just to educate and get the message out that you don't have to be sick.
No problem. Absolutely. One more time, Rachel, before we close this, can you just give out your contact information again?
Sure. First, you guys can go to purelifechangers.com. There's a place to contact me on there. That's PURE, lifechangers.com. You can email me at rachel@purelifechangers.com. And you can also find me on Facebook if you go to @rachelgarcia.net. Rachel is RACHEL, Garcia.net. On the Facebook search page, you can find me and follow me there. I do all kinds of nutritional tips. And you also might get a peek into my family life a little bit
there. Absolutely. Rob, you got anything else for me?
No, again, this has been great. And as we start the new year, again, like you said, just do a little bit of what could enhance your life at a time. It's taken years to get to where we are. It's not going to happen overnight trying to change everything. And again, I would push this book. There's lots of little opportunities to incorporate small things on a daily basis and incrementally get better. That's what I did, because I went vegetarian back in 2017, and I incorporated that book just every day, trying to do something small and healthy. And I wouldn't say years later I'm a paragon of health, but I'm much better than I was before. So definitely believe everything you're saying, and then it's good. You bring an energy to the table, which is awesome too.
Yeah, so. Great. Well, thank you for joining the Help Me I'm Middle Aged podcast. Please remember to scroll down, hit the subscribe button, share on your social media feeds. We're just trying to build a nice audience here, have great guests on, share awesome information. Once again, thanks for joining us to Help Me I'm Middle Aged podcast. Until next time, tapping out. Bye-bye.